Welcome, friend, to Sleepy Science History. Settle in for a moment. Maybe imagine yourself curled up under a blanket or sitting by a window where the stars are just beginning to glimmer in the night sky. Can you feel how the world outside grows quieter at this hour? The hum of traffic softens. The rhythm of the day finally rests. And here we are, leaning into a gentle question together. Could we really live inside a black hole? It sounds absurd, doesn't it? A black hole is supposed to be the ultimate destroyer, the cosmic vacuum cleaner that swallows light, time, and entire galaxies. We're told to think of them as endings. And yet, I can't help but wonder, what if the story is not about destruction at all, but about hidden beginnings? What if the inside of a black hole is not empty, not silent, but instead something else? Something strange, perhaps even beautiful? Would you dare to peek across that edge? Before we step too far into the mystery, let's pause. Have you ever watched water spiraling down a drain? The way it pulls everything inward, faster and faster, until it vanishes at the center? A black hole is a little like that, but not with water, not with anything familiar. Instead, it's space itself flowing inward. It's time bending, twisting, folding into a place where the rules we cling to no longer apply. Now, if you and I were standing at the edge of one, don't worry, we won't fall in just yet. We'd be facing what's called the event horizon. You've probably heard that phrase before. It's the ultimate boundary, the cosmic do not cross line. From the outside, nothing that passes through it can ever return, not even light. But here's the curious thing. Does that mean nothing exists inside? Or does it mean only that we cannot see what's there? That's the first riddle. The inside of a black hole is invisible to us, sealed off like a secret locked box. So whatever lives there, if anything does, remains hidden. Isn't it funny? We're surrounded by mysteries every day, but none so stubborn as this one. And don't you feel a small thrill, imagining what could be inside? Some scientists whisper about universes within universes. They wonder, could every black hole be a seed, a womb for a brand new cosmos? Perhaps when a massive star dies and collapses, it doesn't end. It transforms. From our perspective, it shrinks into darkness. But from another point of view, maybe it blooms into a vast new world. Imagine a flower folding inward, only to open somewhere else entirely. Could our own universe have begun in this way, in the hidden heart of some parent cosmos? I pause when I think of that. It makes my breath catch. Because if that were true, then everything we know, every star, every planet, even you and me, might be the inside story of a black hole that once formed long ago, in a universe we'll never meet. Doesn't that make you wonder where the chain ends? If our universe was born inside another, was that one also born inside yet another? Is there an endless family tree of black holes giving birth to universes, stretching backwards forever? Sometimes I picture it like Russian nesting dolls. You know those wooden dolls, painted in bright colors, where you open one to find another inside, and another still? What if black holes are the cosmic version of that? An infinite set of hidden worlds, each inside the other, each with its own laws, its own stars, maybe even its own dreamers asking the same questions we are now. But hold on. Let's ask the quieter, humbler question. Suppose it were possible to live inside a black hole. What would that actually feel like? Would the ground curve under our feet? Would the sky look like swirling tunnels of light? Would time itself feel like warm honey, stretched and slow, or like quicksilver, rushing past in a blur? And more daring still, what if civilizations could exist there? Whole communities of beings who never knew they lived in a black hole at all. To them, it would simply be the universe. Just as we accept the dome of stars above us without question, they might accept their skies, their suns, their rhythms of day and night. Could they be watching their own horizons now, wondering what lies beyond? I sometimes think of it like walking through a dense fog. When you stand in the fog, you can't see far ahead. You trust there's a path, even if it's hidden. Perhaps for creatures inside a black hole, their horizon is simply that fog, a veil that never lifts. Of course, some might shake their heads at these musings. They'd say, no, black holes are too violent. The tidal forces would shred matter apart. Gravity would crush everything to a singularity. There is no living inside. And yet, I find myself smiling at such certainty. Because haven't we been wrong before? Centuries ago, we thought Earth was the center of the universe. We thought the stars were tiny lanterns hung just beyond the clouds. We thought nothing heavier than air could fly. And each time, reality surprised us. Might it not surprise us again? Let me ask you, don't you secretly enjoy these impossibilities? The way they stretch your mind like taffy? Isn't there something restful in wondering without needing an answer? I sometimes lie awake at night, listening to the hum of the world outside, and I let myself imagine. What if, right now, we're already inside such a cosmic chamber? Maybe the reason we can't see beyond our universe is because we're wrapped safely inside the shell of a black hole, nurtured like an unborn child in a cosmic womb. Isn't that a strangely comforting thought? That what looks like an ending from the outside could be a beginning from within. If we accept that, then suddenly black holes stop being monsters. They become gateways. Not tombs, but doorways. And doorways invite exploration, don't they? Even if we can never step through, the very act of wondering feels like reaching a hand toward the knob. So let me return to the question I began with. Could we really live inside a black hole? We don't know. Maybe not in the way we understand life now. Maybe not with lungs that breathe or eyes that see in this particular spectrum of light. But perhaps life takes other shapes, other rhythms inside. Life that isn't torn apart by gravity because it never evolved in any other condition. Life that doesn't fear darkness because it has never known a sun. And what about us? If our universe is itself the inside of a black hole, then the answer is already yes. We do live inside one. We have lived here all along. Isn't that a beautiful twist? The question collapses in on itself, just like the star that collapses into a black hole. And within that collapse, a new perspective is born. I leave you with this. When you next look up at the night sky, think of it not just as an expanse above you, but perhaps as the inside of a vast hidden chamber, curving gently around. Think of yourself as part of a mystery so grand it cannot be ended, only transformed. And then maybe let yourself smile. Because isn't it a relief sometimes not to need the final answer? To rest in the wonder, to float in the question, and to know that even in the deepest darkness, there may be worlds upon worlds waiting to be imagined? Are you still with me? Good. Take another deep breath if you'd like. Maybe close your eyes for just a moment. Feel the chair beneath you, the gentle weight of your own body. The world outside can rush and tumble. But here, together, we can let the questions unfold like ripples on a quiet pond. Last time we asked, could we live inside a black hole? We let the question hang in the air, like a lantern glowing in the dark. And now, perhaps it's time to step a little closer, to lean over that railing and peer deeper into the mystery. So, let's imagine it again. The edge of a black hole. What would you notice first? Would it be the silence? The way sound would seem swallowed before it even reached your ears? Or would it be the strange bending of light, stars stretched and smeared across the sky as though painted with trembling fingers? The horizon wouldn't look like any horizon we've ever known. It wouldn't be a line between earth and sky, but a boundary between the possible and the unknowable. Do you ever feel that tug, that quiet curiosity, when standing at the edge of the ocean? You know the water stretches further than you can see, further than you could ever swim. And yet, there's always that tiny urge. What's out there? What lies beyond? A black hole is like that, but magnified until your very sense of space trembles. Now, here's the strange thing. If you were to fall in, and don't worry, I'll fall with you, you wouldn't actually notice the exact moment you cross the event horizon. Isn't that peculiar? The universe loves paradoxes. From the outside, it looks like a wall, a boundary no one can cross. But for you, drifting inward, it would feel strangely ordinary. One moment, you'd be gazing at the stars behind you. The next, they'd stretch and twist, fading from sight, and you'd be on your way in. And then what? Would you be crushed instantly, as textbooks often warn? Or could there be more to the story? Some scientists argue that the forces near the singularity, the point at the center where matter collapses into infinite density, would tear you apart, atom by atom. They call it spaghettification, A funny word for such a terrifying fate. Can't you just picture it? You stretched into something thin and endless, like dough pulled into noodles. But that's only one picture. Others wonder if the singularity isn't quite the monster we think. After all, we've never seen one directly. We're guessing, piecing together equations like puzzle fragments. And puzzles often surprise us, don't they? So here's another possibility. Instead of being crushed, perhaps you'd pass through something more like a doorway. Cosmic tunnel. A bridge between spaces. Physicists call them wormholes. And though no one has proven their existence, they linger in equations, whispering of shortcuts through space-time. Could the center of a black hole be such a passage, leading not to an ending, but to another universe entirely? If so, then maybe living inside a black hole isn't about resisting its gravity, but about accepting it, letting yourself be carried into that hidden chamber. Like drifting down a river whose current is too strong to fight. You'd stop struggling, stop clinging, and let it bear you to another shore. Does that sound frightening to you? Or strangely peaceful? I think of it sometimes like falling asleep. You know that moment right as you drift off when you're not fully awake but not fully gone either. Your body is heavy. Your thoughts scatter like leaves in the wind. And then suddenly you're dreaming. Crossing the event horizon might be like that. An imperceptible shift, a surrender, a slip into another reality that feels just as vivid as this one. And if a new universe were waiting on the other side, what would it look like? Would its stars shine brighter? Would its planets hum with colors we cannot see? Maybe its time would flow differently, centuries passing in what feels to us like seconds, or seconds stretching into centuries. Could life evolve under such rhythms? Could civilizations rise and fall before we even blinked? Sometimes, when I imagine this, I picture a grand library. Shelves stretching farther than sight, each one filled with books we'll never read. Each black hole could be such a book. Closed to us, unreadable from the outside. But inside, whole stories unfold. Characters are born. Quests begin. Joys and sorrows fill pages. Maybe we're just one of those books, resting quietly on a cosmic shelf. Doesn't that thought make you smile a little? And here's another thought. If black holes are gateways, then what does that make us? Are we explorers standing at the threshold? Or are we already travelers, born inside one without knowing it? I like to ask myself that on quiet nights. If our universe really is inside a black hole, what lies outside it? Who, if anyone, is gazing at us the way we gaze at the stars? Could there be beings in some larger universe, watching the birth of our cosmos as nothing more than the flicker of light at the center of their sky? It's humbling, isn't it? To imagine our vast everything as just one small flame in a larger darkness. But maybe humbling is good. It reminds us that wonder is bigger than fear. Let's bring the question closer, though. Suppose we tried to really live inside a black hole. What would that mean for us in practical terms? Could we build homes there? Could we walk under alien skies? To answer that, we have to think about gravity. On Earth, gravity holds us steady, keeps our feet on the ground. Inside a black hole, gravity isn't just strong, it's overwhelming. But what if, deep inside, the forces balance out? What if, beyond the singularity, space-time expands again, stretching into a new cosmos where conditions feel strangely familiar? Perhaps it would be like stepping into a valley after climbing a mountain. The climb, the fall into the hole is terrifying. But at the bottom, things level out. Rivers run, skies brighten, life continues. Could that be possible? It's only speculation, of course. But isn't speculation a kind of play? The mind's way of wandering barefoot through tall grass, picking up stones and turning them over just to see what glimmers beneath. Let me ask you, don't you ever feel that spark of joy when a mystery refuses to yield? When the answer is just out of reach and all you have is the question itself. Black holes are like that. They give us puzzles without solutions, doorways we cannot open. And yet, in reaching for them, we stretch ourselves. We become bigger on the inside, even if the outside remains unchanged. Sometimes I imagine black holes as cosmic mirrors. We stare at them, thinking we're looking at the universe's secrets. But maybe they're reflecting us back at ourselves. Our hunger for meaning, our fear of endings, our longing for beginnings. So, could we really live inside a black hole? Perhaps the truer question is, what do we mean by live? If life is survival, then maybe not. If life is curiosity, imagination, the courage to wonder, then aren't we already doing it? Right now, in this very moment, by simply asking the question. I like to think the universe rewards such wondering. Maybe every black hole is the cosmos leaning close and whispering, "Ask me more." And so we ask, and we wait, and in the waiting we find a kind of peace. Before we close for tonight, let me leave you with this thought. If black holes are endings, they are also beginnings. If they are destroyers, they are also creators. And if they are mysteries, they are also invitations. The next time you gaze at the night sky, let your eyes linger on the dark patches, the spaces where stars seem to vanish. Instead of fearing them, imagine them as doorways. And maybe, just maybe, imagine yourself stepping through. Not with fear, not with resistance, but with the gentle trust of someone drifting into a dream, knowing that whatever lies on the other side is not an ending, but another story waiting to be told. Are you comfortable? Good. Let's take this slow as always. You and I are not in a rush. The universe is patient, and so are we. Tonight, our question remains the same, though it shifts in shape like a cloud. Could we really live inside a black hole? We've lingered at the edge, we've dared to imagine stepping through, but now, perhaps, we should ask, what would life feel like once we were truly inside? Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the familiar world, the pull of Earth's gravity, the warmth of the sun, the reliable turning of day into night. Inside a black hole, none of that may exist. Would we still recognize the flow of time? Would we still have a sense of up and down? Or would everything dissolve into a kind of cosmic dream, where direction loses meaning and only motion itself matters? Let's start with time, because time is the trickiest of companions. You've probably felt how time can stretch or shrink, depending on your mood. An hour waiting in line at the bank feels like forever. An hour laughing with a friend feels like a moment. But inside a black hole, time doesn't just feel strange. It is strange. Einstein showed us that gravity and time are woven together like threads in a tapestry. The stronger the gravity, the slower time flows. On Earth, we don't notice it much, but astronauts orbiting above us age just a fraction of a second differently than we do. Now, take that tiny difference and magnify it 1,000,000,000 times. That's the black hole. Imagine standing on the surface of a world near its heart. To you, everything would feel normal, your heart beating, your footsteps steady. But if I watched from far away, outside the event horizon, I'd see you slow down, slower and slower, until you seemed frozen in place. Isn't that a haunting image? From your perspective, you'd live and breathe, but to me, you'd be a statue of light, forever paused at the edge. And what about space itself? That too bends inside a black hole. On Earth, we measure distance with rulers, with steps, with the time it takes light to travel from one point to another. But inside, those measurements twist. Paths curve in ways they shouldn't. You might walk forward only to find yourself looping back. Up could become down, near could become far. Could we ever learn to navigate such a place? Perhaps, if we lived there long enough, we would adapt. Our minds, so quick to find patterns, might invent new maps, new directions, new ways of moving through warped terrain. Just as fish don't think about the water they swim in, perhaps we would forget the flat geometry of our old universe and learn to breathe in this new one. That brings us to another question. Could planets, stars, or even galaxies exist inside a black hole? If space-time expands beyond the singularity, then maybe yes. Picture it. Skies filled with unfamiliar constellations, suns rising in colors our eyes cannot name. Could whole civilizations thrive there, never suspecting they live in the belly of a larger cosmos? I sometimes think of it like a snow globe. From the outside, it looks small, contained, just a trinket on a shelf. But inside, there are trees, houses, tiny worlds with their own winters and storms. To us, the universe may feel infinite, but what if, to something outside, it is no more than a snow globe, resting within the vastness of another shelf, in another room, in another reality? Would you want to know if that were true? Or would you prefer to live inside your globe, content with its skies and seasons? Here's another layer to the puzzle: energy. Life as we know it requires sunlight, heat, chemical reactions. Could there be energy sources inside a black hole? Some scientists suggest that as matter falls inward, it could create powerful bursts, enough to ignite stars in a newborn universe. Imagine living under a sky where suns are born not from gentle clouds of gas, but from the fierce collapse of realities. Would that light feel different on your skin? And then, there's the question of survival. Could we, humans, fragile as we are, exist inside? Or would life need to take on new forms? Maybe creatures there wouldn't need lungs or hearts. Maybe they'd flow like patterns of light, like ripples in a pond, aware but weightless. Could consciousness itself adapt to such an environment? Could we shed the limits of flesh and live as something else entirely? It's a daring thought, isn't it? To imagine yourself not as a body, but as a wave, a dance of energy, slipping easily through curved space and twisted time. Would that still be you? Or would you be something entirely new? I like to linger here on the edge of possibility, because life as we know it is always transforming. A caterpillar becomes a butterfly, a seed becomes a tree, a star collapses into a black hole. Why not imagine that consciousness, too, could change its shape, finding new ways to live in places we think are impossible? Now, let's pause and ask, why does this matter to us? Why spend an evening wondering whether life could exist inside a black hole? Isn't it all too far away, too unreachable, too theoretical? Maybe. But isn't wonder itself a kind of survival? Don't you feel it? The way curiosity keeps us alive in a different way? Our bodies need food and shelter, but our minds, our hearts, they need wonder, they need mystery, they need questions without answers. And black holes are perfect for that. They sit like quiet guardians at the edge of knowledge, reminding us that not everything can be solved. Some things are meant to be lived with, like riddles carried in your pocket. Think of it this way. When you look at the night sky, what do you feel? Awe? Comfort? Loneliness? Perhaps a mix of all three. That feeling is the beginning of philosophy, of science, of art. Black holes, in their silence, give us that gift. They remind us that the universe is larger than we can imagine, and that inside the darkness may lie not an ending, but 1,000 beginnings. So, could we live inside a black hole? Perhaps the answer depends less on physics and more on perspective. We might never set foot there in the literal sense. But in our minds, in our imagination, we already do. Every time we wonder, every time we dream, every time we ask, what if, aren't we stepping inside, just a little? I sometimes think that imagination itself is our doorway, our event horizon. Crossing it is effortless. We slip into dreams, stories, questions, and suddenly we're somewhere else, somewhere new. So maybe we don't need to build spaceships to enter a black hole. Maybe we only need to wonder. And here we are, you and I, doing exactly that. Let me ask you this. If tonight, as you drift off to sleep, you dreamed of standing inside a black hole, what would you hope to see? A new star rising? A city glowing under alien skies? Or just a vast quiet, where time rests and space holds its breath? Whatever you imagine, hold it gently, because the truth is, none of us know. And that's what makes the question beautiful. Before we close this chapter, let me circle back to where we began. Could we live inside a black hole? Maybe the better question is, could we live with the idea of it? Could we let it remind us, day by day, that the universe is stranger, larger, and more generous than we can grasp? If we can, then perhaps we've already begun to live inside that mystery. And maybe that's enough. Are you still comfortable, my friend? Good. Let's breathe for a moment before we go on. The night is patient, and so is the universe, so there's no need to hurry. We're only drifting, following the current of a single question, as if it were a lantern on a dark river. Could we really live inside a black hole? We've already tiptoed to the edge of the horizon. We've imagined falling in, wondered about time stretching and space curving, dreamed of worlds and lives hidden beyond. But tonight, perhaps it's worth asking, what if black holes are not just strange places, but teachers? What lessons might they be offering us, if only we learn to listen? Have you ever noticed how black holes are described in such fierce terms? Monsters, destroyers, cosmic vacuum cleaners? It's true, they are powerful beyond measure, but I wonder if the language we use blinds us. What if they are not monsters at all, but mysteries dressed in shadows? What if they are more like mirrors, reflecting back our deepest fears and our deepest hopes? Think of it this way. For centuries, humans feared the edge of the sea. Maps were drawn with dragons at the margins, warning sailors not to venture too far. The ocean seemed endless, dangerous, impossible to cross. And yet, when bold travelers set sail, they found not monsters but new worlds. Could black holes be the same? Not the end of our map, but a doorway to something beyond it? If so, then the question shifts. It's not simply, could we live inside a black hole? But also, what kind of life would we have if we learned to embrace what we fear? Let's return to the physics for a moment, but gently, as though walking barefoot across soft moss. A black hole forms when a star collapses under its own weight. Imagine that. Something that once gave light to worlds, that once burned with nuclear fire, slowly exhausting itself. Its fuel runs out, its fire dims, and instead of fading quietly, it implodes. Gravity takes over, unstoppable, pulling everything inward until space and time themselves are caught in the fall. It's a little sad, isn't it? A star dying in such violence. And yet, isn't there beauty in the idea that even in death, the star creates something new? Something so mysterious we're still puzzling over it today. Doesn't that remind you of the cycles of life we see everywhere? A tree falls in the forest, and its decaying trunk nourishes mushrooms, insects, and seedlings. An ending becomes a beginning. Could black holes be the cosmic version of that? Endings that are really transformations? And if so, could we not imagine life inside them as part of that great cycle? Perhaps not life like ours with bodies and breaths, but life in some form, nurtured by what came before. What would such life look like? Let's play with the thought. Suppose consciousness could adapt to the strange flow of time near the singularity. What if beings there lived in what we'd consider only seconds, but to them stretched across centuries? A single heartbeat for us could be an entire history for them. Would they think of us as impossibly fast, flickering, ghost-like creatures? Or perhaps the opposite. Maybe time inside stretches so slowly that what we live in a lifetime would barely be a blink for them. Would they watch us as one might watch fireflies, appearing and vanishing in the dusk? It's humbling to imagine ourselves as tiny sparks in someone else's sky. But isn't humility itself a kind of lesson? Black holes remind us that the universe is not built on our scale alone. Now, let's ask about space itself. You know how, on Earth, we take directions for granted. North, south, east, west, down. In a black hole, those anchors slip away. Everything curves. Distances lose meaning. The very fabric of reality folds in on itself. Would that disorient us? Of course. But maybe, just maybe, new senses would awaken. Think of a bat, navigating with sound instead of sight. Or a bird, sensing the pull of Earth's magnetic field. Perhaps creatures inside a black hole would navigate by curvature itself, feeling the folds of space the way we feel the slope of a hill underfoot. Could we learn that skill? Could we imagine living in a place where direction is not straight but spiraled, where every step bends the world around you? It sounds dizzying, and yet it also sounds strangely beautiful. I wonder, if we grew up in such a world, would it feel natural? Just as a fish never questions the water it swims in, perhaps beings inside a black hole never question the curves of their space. To them, our flat maps, our rulers and straight lines would seem bizarre. Here's another thought. Light. Outside, we rely on light to see. It carries information, paints our world, guides our eyes. But inside a black hole, light cannot escape. Would that mean total darkness? Or could there be another kind of illumination? Something we cannot yet imagine? Perhaps beings there would see not with eyes, but with some deeper sense, feeling the vibrations of spacetime itself. What if they didn't think of it as darkness at all, but as fullness? A fullness of being immersed in the very fabric of reality, without the distraction of surfaces and shadows. Could we call that blindness? Or could we call it vision of a higher kind? And now, the larger question, if black holes could contain whole universes, if each one could be a seed of creation, then doesn't that mean life might not just exist inside them but actually depend on them? Could it be that, without black holes, there would be no galaxies, no stars, no us? Astronomers already tell us that most galaxies, including our own Milky Way, have a supermassive black hole at their center. Isn't that fascinating? The very objects we once feared as destroyers may actually hold galaxies together, anchoring billions of stars in their orbits. Could it be that life itself owes its existence to these dark hearts? And if that's true, then the question of living inside a black hole is not far-fetched at all. Because in a way, aren't we already living because of them? Every breath we take, every step we walk on this little planet, may be part of a cosmic dance choreographed by black holes long before we ever came to be. That thought comforts me. Doesn't it comfort you too? To know that even the darkest places in the cosmos might be life-giving in ways we don't yet understand. Perhaps that's the deepest lesson black holes have to teach. That what looks like an end may also be a beginning. That what seems like destruction may hide creation. That what we fear may one day reveal itself as our greatest gift. Let's turn the question inward for a moment. What are the black holes in your life? The endings that felt final, the losses that seemed unbearable, the mysteries that frightened you? Could it be that, hidden within them, something new was waiting to be born? Maybe that's why we're drawn to these cosmic riddles, not just for science, but for the mirror they hold up to our own lives. Black holes teach us patience with the unknown. They teach us to find beauty in mystery. They teach us to trust that beyond the horizon, something unexpected waits. So, could we live inside a black hole? Maybe the answer is not yes or no, but simply this: we already do in spirit. Every time we hold on to curiosity instead of fear, every time we allow mystery to shape us instead of crush us, every time we find a beginning hidden in an ending, we live inside that paradox. And maybe, when the universe is ready, it will show us more. Until then, let's rest in the question. Let's linger by the horizon. And let's remember that sometimes, the act of wondering itself is the truest way of living. Welcome back, friend. Feels good, doesn't it, to return to this quiet place together? Like stepping into a familiar room, where the lamp glows softly and the night outside presses close against the windows. The world may rush and clamor during the day, but here we take our time. We're still holding the same question in our hands, turning it slowly like a stone smoothed by river water. Could we really live inside a black hole? So far, we've dared to imagine the crossing of the horizon, the bending of time, the twisting of space, the strange possibility of life beyond destruction. But tonight, perhaps we should step even deeper into the heart of the question itself. If black holes are not just endings, but beginnings, what kind of universes could bloom inside them? And what would it mean for us if our own universe began that way? Let's begin with a picture. Have you ever cracked open a seed? On the outside, it's small, unremarkable, just a husk. Yet inside, there is an entire blueprint for a tree, a forest, a world of branches and leaves. Isn't it marvelous how something so tiny can hold something so vast? A black hole may be like that. To us, from the outside, it looks small, dark, final. But inside, it could carry the seeds of whole universes, unfolding vast and endless, invisible from where we stand. Doesn't that make you wonder? If universes can bloom from black holes, how many are out there? How many stories have already been written in those hidden realms? And most haunting of all, are we one of them? Some physicists suggest exactly that. They wonder if our own universe might have begun as the collapse of a star in another cosmos. If so, then everything we know, galaxies, planets, oceans, even the thoughts running through your mind right now, may be the flowering of that collapse. What looked like death from the outside may have been our birth from the inside. I pause here because the thought is heavy and light all at once. Heavy because it humbles us. We are not the first chapter of existence, but a middle one. Light because it frees us. Even endings may be doorways. If that's true, then black holes are not cosmic trash bins, swallowing things forever. They are wombs. They are gateways. They are passages from one kind of existence to another. doesn't that change how you feel about them? When I was younger, I used to picture black holes as hungry monsters. I'd imagine them prowling through the galaxy, devouring stars, dragging planets into their mouths. But now I like to imagine them as midwives. Stern, perhaps a little frightening, but ultimately bringing forth something new. And if black holes are midwives, then what kind of children do they bear? What do their universes look like? Here's where imagination must step in, because our equations can only take us so far. Perhaps some black holes give birth to universes like ours, expansive, filled with galaxies and stars. But perhaps others create stranger realms. Universes with different rules, where light bends differently, or time flows in circles, or matter never condenses into stars at all. Would life be possible in such places? Could consciousness adapt even there? Or are we only one lucky version among countless others? A spark that caught flame where so many others fizzled? It's humbling, isn't it, to imagine ourselves as only one variation among infinite possibilities? And yet, doesn't that also make us precious? Like a single rare flower blooming in a field of endless seeds? I sometimes wonder if life exists in those other universes. Do they ask the same questions we do? Do they sit by their own versions of the night sky, gazing at dark patches and asking, what lies beyond? Do they dream of us, even as we dream of them? Let's return to our own perspective, though. Imagine standing near the center of a newborn black hole universe. At first, everything would be hot, dense, chaotic. Energy and matter swirling in a frenzy, like a storm too vast to comprehend. But over time, patterns would emerge. Clouds of gas, pulled by gravity, condense into stars. Those stars form galaxies. Those galaxies drift apart, carried on the expansion of space itself. Does that sound familiar? It should. It's our own origin story. The Big Bang may have been the birth cry of a black hole in another universe. Isn't it remarkable to think we may be living in someone else's aftermath? That our skies, our planets, even our lives are echoes of another star's collapse? And here's the delicious paradox. From their perspective, it was an ending. From ours, it was a beginning. Couldn't the same be true for our black holes? When stars in our universe collapse, when black holes form in the dark, maybe new universes are being born inside them, unseen by us. Maybe we are parents without even knowing it. If so, then our cosmos is fertile beyond imagination, sprouting new realities wherever black holes form. And if that is true, then creation never ends. It only transforms. Doesn't that make the universe feel less lonely? To think of it not as a cold, empty expanse, but as a family tree, ever branching, ever growing? But let's linger on the practical question for a moment. If we did live inside a black hole, how would we know? Could we ever tell the difference between an ordinary universe and one born inside such a chamber? Some scientists argue that we might see clues in the laws of physics themselves. Perhaps the strength of gravity, the way particles interact, even the mysterious value of dark energy. All these could be fingerprints of the parent universe, like traits passed from parent to child, encoded in the very fabric of spacetime. Wouldn't that be extraordinary? To look at the equations of physics and realize they are not arbitrary, but inherited. That we are, in a sense, carrying the DNA of another cosmos. If that's true, then studying black holes is not just curiosity. It's genealogy. It's family history, written not in blood, but in starlight. Now, let me ask you, how does that make you feel? Excited? Overwhelmed? Comforted? Perhaps all at once. For me, it feels like standing in a cathedral, not one built of stone, but of stars. Vast, echoing, mysterious. You don't need to understand everything to feel awe. You only need to stand there and listen. And maybe that's the true gift of these questions. They remind us to listen, to slow down, to rest in wonder. Because in the end, whether we can ever live inside a black hole in the literal sense may not matter as much as how the question changes us. It opens us, stretches us, reminds us that reality is far stranger than our daily routines suggest. It also teaches us tenderness. If even black holes, once feared as destroyers, can be creators, then perhaps we, too, can transform our endings into beginnings, our failures into lessons, our griefs into seeds of compassion. So let's circle back. Could we live inside a black hole? If by living we mean breathing air, building houses, planting gardens, then maybe not, or at least not in the way we know. But if by living we mean being part of the great cycle of creation, part of the story of endings and beginnings, then the answer may already be yes. We live in one. We always have. And maybe, one day, far in the future, when our own stars collapse, when new black holes bloom in our skies, we will give birth to other universes, other stories, other beings who will ask their own gentle questions. Will they wonder about us? Will they sense that their cosmos carries echoes of ours? Will they sit under alien skies and whisper, could we really live inside a black hole? I like to think they will. And in that echo, across unimaginable distances and times, we will be connected. Until then, let us rest in the question. Let us marvel at the seeds hidden in shadows. Let us remember that even the darkest places may be wombs of light. And tonight, as you drift towards sleep, let yourself imagine. Not fear, but possibility. Imagine that every black hole in the sky is not a tomb, but a door. And that behind each door lies not emptiness, but a story, waiting patiently to unfold. Are you still with me, friend? Good. Let's pause here for a moment, breathe, and remember. There is no need to hurry. The universe itself is never in a rush. Stars take millions of years to form. Galaxies drift apart so slowly we'd never notice it in a lifetime. Time stretches and curves, patient and unbothered. We are only visitors, listening to its rhythm. So tonight, we'll continue to walk slowly with our question. Could we really live inside a black hole? Up until now, we've been peering at the mystery from the outside, like children pressing their faces against a window, wondering about the room beyond. We've imagined the doorway of the event horizon. We've pictured new universes blooming inside. We've wondered about strange beings, unfamiliar time, and the hidden lessons black holes may carry. But perhaps now it is time to explore something even deeper. Not just what could exist inside, but how it might feel to belong there. Because that's what living really means, isn't it? To belong, to feel at home. So let's close our eyes together. Let's imagine that somehow, by physics unknown, by pathways not yet mapped, we step inside. Let's imagine we find ourselves in a world that was born from a black hole's hidden heart. What would it look like? Would it feel alien beyond recognition, or strangely familiar? The first thing you might notice is the sky. Not the gentle dome of stars we know, but something stranger. Perhaps streaks of light, stretched thin as ribbons, weaving patterns across the heavens. Perhaps suns that flare and dim, their colors shifting through shades our eyes cannot name. Perhaps there would be no sky at all, only an endless shimmer, like the inside of a pearl, where light bends and scatters in every direction. Would it frighten you? Or would you feel awe, as though you had stepped into a cathedral made not by hands, but by space-time itself? Next, let's think of the ground beneath our feet. Could there even be ground inside a black hole? Or would everything float, adrift in a sea of shifting curves? I like to imagine that, if a universe blooms inside, gravity would eventually sculpt new worlds, just as it did here. Perhaps we would walk across landscapes unlike any on Earth. Valleys that curve back upon themselves, mountains whose peaks seem to touch their own roots, rivers that flow in spirals instead of straight lines. Could life thrive there? So what shape would it take? Perhaps not plants with leaves and stems, but something more fluid, beings woven of light and gravity, drifting like jellyfish in a sea of warped space. Could they be conscious in ways we can't yet imagine? Could they look at us, if we somehow met, and see us as equally strange, equally unlikely, equally beautiful? Here's a thought. Maybe the black hole itself is alive. Not alive in the way we are, with hearts and lungs, but alive in the way a forest is alive. A great, self-sustaining system, filled with rhythms, cycles, and hidden intelligence. Could the very fabric of a black hole universe be conscious, aware, dreaming of the life it carries within? And if so, then by stepping inside, Would we not simply be visitors, but participants in its dream? Does that sound too fanciful? Perhaps. But consider this: we are already participants in the dream of our own universe. We are made of its elements, forged in the hearts of stars, shaped by the gravity of planets, guided by the light of the sun. We are not separate from the cosmos, we are its expression. Why couldn't the same be true inside a black hole? Now, let's return to time, that slippery companion. How would days and nights pass in such a place? Perhaps they wouldn't pass at all. Perhaps time there would not move in a straight line but in a circle, looping endlessly, so that moments repeat in patterns like songs played on repeat. Would you recognize yourself in such a rhythm, or would you lose all sense of identity? And here's a question: if time were circular, could beings there remember not only their past but also their future? Could they live not in anticipation but in certainty, knowing already how their lives unfold? Would that feel like freedom or like confinement? It makes me smile to think how many possibilities are hidden in something as simple as time. We think we know it so well, seconds ticking on a clock, days turning into nights. But time is more flexible than we allow ourselves to believe. And black holes, those dark teachers, remind us that even time is a mystery waiting to be reimagined. Now let's consider this: if every black hole could be a universe, then every universe might be the child of another. And if so, then there may be an infinite family tree, branching endlessly. Could it be that every decision, every collapse, every transformation, echoes across not just one world but many? If our universe is such a child, then what of its parent? What kind of cosmos gave birth to us? Was it similar with galaxies and stars? Or was it stranger, so alien we would not recognize its patterns? Could the very laws of physics we hold dear, gravity, light, time, be inherited traits, passed down like the color of eyes from parent to child? And if so, does that mean we, too, will pass traits to whatever universes are born from our black holes? Will they inherit echoes of us? Could they carry within them the fingerprints of our existence? I find that thought tender. To imagine that, long after our world has faded, long after our sun has burned out, some distant universe may still carry faint traces of us. Not our names, not our stories, perhaps, but the structure of our physics, the pattern of our cosmos. Doesn't that feel like a kind of immortality? Here's another thought. What if living inside a black hole isn't about survival in the physical sense at all? What if it's about imagination? What if every time we let ourselves wonder, every time we play with questions that cannot be answered, we are already stepping inside? Isn't that what we're doing now? Living, in a way, inside the mystery itself? I think sometimes that curiosity is our deepest form of life. Long after our bodies are gone, the questions we've asked will echo. They will shape new minds, inspire new seekers, ripple outward like waves on water. Black holes may be silent, but the wonder they awaken in us is not. And isn't that a kind of life? A life carried in questions, in possibilities, in stories? So, let's ask again, what would it mean to belong in such a place? Maybe it would mean learning to let go of fear, to see darkness not as emptiness, but as potential, to see collapse not as failure, but as transformation, to see endings not as final, but as seeds. Doesn't that lesson echo in our own lives? How many times have you thought something was the end, only to find it was the beginning of something new? A lost job, a broken relationship, a closed door, all black holes of their own kind. And yet, inside them, new universes often form. Perhaps living inside a black hole is not so different from living here after all. It is about trusting the unseen, embracing the unknown, finding beauty in the mystery. And maybe that is why these questions calm us, even as they puzzle us. Because in their vastness, they remind us of our own strength to endure, to imagine, to create. So, could we really live inside a black hole? Perhaps the truest answer is this: we already do whenever we live with wonder. Whenever we hold questions without rushing for answers. Whenever we rest in the unknown and let it be our home. And maybe that is enough. Settle in, my friend. The night is long, but our pace is gentle. There is no finish line waiting for us. No clock ticking impatiently on the wall. Only the soft unfolding of questions, like petals opening one by one. And our question tonight is still the same one we've been carrying, like a small lantern cupped between our hands. Could we really live inside a black hole? By now, we've circled the question so many ways, through time and space, through beginnings and endings, through the strange family trees of universes birthing universes. But every time we look again, it seems to reveal another angle, another mystery, another quiet possibility. So perhaps tonight we should shift our gaze once more, not to the horizon itself, but to the journey toward it. What would it mean not just to live inside a black hole, but to travel there? To approach one, to draw near, to surrender to its pull? Imagine for a moment that we are travelers, not of oceans or skies, but of stars. We set out from Earth, leaving behind the gentle blue glow of our planet. We cross the solar system, silent worlds drifting past like beads on a necklace. Jupiter swirls below, its storms vast and ancient. Saturn's rings glimmer in the distance. And then, beyond the edge of sunlight, the dark. How would it feel, do you think, to drift through that darkness for years, decades, maybe centuries, with only the faint light of stars to guide you? Would the loneliness weigh heavy, or would it feel strangely peaceful, as though the silence itself were a companion? Now imagine that after such a journey, we find it, the black hole. At first, perhaps, it looks unremarkable. Not a glowing star, not a fiery explosion, but a patch of absence. A place where light itself seems to hesitate, to vanish. Around it, stars stretch and twist, pulled into arcs of light, as though the sky itself were bending toward it. Would your heart quicken at the sight? Or would you feel a calm wonder, knowing you were standing at the edge of the greatest mystery in the cosmos? If we moved closer, we'd feel its pull. Not sudden, not violent at first, but insistent, like the tide tugging at your ankles when you stand in the surf. The closer we drift, the stronger it grows, until at last, the event horizon looms before us, the line of no return. Now here's the paradox. From the outside, it looks like an impassable barrier. But from the inside, crossing it would feel no different than stepping across a threshold in your home. Wouldn't that be the strangest thing? The most important boundary in the universe, and yet, to the traveler, it feels like nothing at all. Doesn't that make you wonder how many boundaries in our own lives are like that? Seeming impossible from the outside, but once crossed, strangely ordinary. So we pass through, we fall inward, and here begins the true mystery. What would we find? Would we be torn apart, stretched thin by tidal forces, as the textbooks tell us? Or could there be something gentler, something unexpected? Could the fall itself become a kind of passage, a tunnel through space-time, leading not to destruction but to rebirth? Physicists sometimes call this idea a white hole, the opposite of a black hole, a place where matter and light do not fall in, but spill outward. Could the inside of a black hole open into such a place, a fountain of creation rather than a drain of destruction? If so, then falling in would not be the end of our journey. It would be the beginning of another. We would emerge into a new universe, blinking at its unfamiliar light, perhaps gasping in awe at skies filled with patterns we've never seen before. And here's the strange thought. If that were true, then maybe death itself is not an ending, but a doorway. Maybe every collapse, every surrender, every letting go is simply a passage into something else. Doesn't that feel like a lesson the cosmos is whispering to us, again and again? But let's not rush too far. Let's linger in the fall. What would it feel like, drifting inward? Would time slow to a crawl? Would your heartbeat stretch into centuries? Would the stars behind you freeze, like a painting, while the darkness ahead grows deeper and deeper? I sometimes imagine it like floating in a dream. You know that moment when you're falling asleep, and your thoughts blur, and time seems to slip through your fingers? Perhaps the fall into a black hole would feel like that, an endless drifting, soft and unhurried, into another kind of being. And yet, for all its mystery, the fall might also feel familiar. After all, aren't we always falling? Falling through time, second by second, toward the unknown? Falling through life, moment by moment, Never quite sure what lies ahead? Maybe that's why black holes fascinate us so much. They are the cosmic mirror of our own journey. They remind us that falling is not always failing. Sometimes falling is the way forward. So, could we live inside a black hole? Maybe the better question tonight is, could we travel there? Could we endure the journey? Could we surrender to the fall without fear? And if we could, what would we discover about ourselves along the way? Because perhaps the journey to a black hole is not about reaching some destination at all. Perhaps it is about learning to live with mystery, to walk toward the unknown, not with certainty, but with trust. Do you feel that? That quiet trust? That sense that even in the darkest places, there may be beauty waiting? I think that's what black holes offer us. Not answers, but invitations. Not certainty, but wonder. They say, come closer, look deeper, fall without fear. And maybe that's what living inside one would truly mean, not surviving in a physical sense, but allowing ourselves to belong to the mystery, to be at home in the unanswerable. So tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine yourself as a traveler. Imagine the long journey through the stars. Imagine the dark horizon looming, the gentle tug pulling you in. And imagine, as you cross the threshold, that you are not ending, but beginning. Perhaps that is the truest way to live inside a black hole. Not with spaceships or science, but with wonder. With the willingness to fall into mystery and call it home. Welcome back, traveler. The night is still with us, and so is our question. Do you feel how it's changed little by little with each chapter? Like a river winding through the landscape, it never flows quite the same way twice. Yet it's always the same river, always carrying us forward. Tonight, the current carries us into new waters, as we continue to ask, could we really live inside a black hole? We've looked at horizons and beginnings, at journeys and falls, at the possibility of new universes blooming from collapse. But tonight, let's turn our gaze toward something even subtler. What would it mean to build a life there? Because living is more than existing. Living is weaving meaning, creating rhythm, finding belonging. If a black hole could cradle life within it, how would that life unfold? What patterns, what homes, what dreams might take shape in such a place? Let's begin with light. On Earth, our days and nights are defined by it. The rising sun, the fading dusk, the silver glow of the moon. But inside a black hole, where light cannot escape, what would illumination mean? Would there be suns at all? Or would everything shimmer with some inner glow? A soft radiance born from the fabric of space-time itself? Imagine walking across a plain under such a sky. The ground beneath you curves in ways you can't explain, and above you, instead of stars, there is a shifting tapestry of colors, not bright but deep hues that move like slow waves, painting everything in an otherworldly glow. Would you call it night? Would you call it day? Or would you forget such distinctions entirely? Could life there evolve senses beyond our own? Eyes that see not photons, but ripples in gravity. Skin that feels not touch, but the very bending of space around it. Minds attuned not to minutes and hours, but to the deep rhythm of time stretching and folding. Would such beings look at us and marvel at how narrow our senses seem? And yet, perhaps it would not feel alien to them at all. Just as fish never question the water, life inside a black hole would accept its world as natural. Isn't that comforting? That no matter how strange the environment, life always finds a way to call it home? Now, let's think about community. On Earth, we gather around fire, around light, around warmth. What would communities gather around in a black hole? Perhaps around sources of energy, jets of matter spiraling inward, releasing bursts of radiation. Imagine a civilization building its homes not around a sun, but around a whirlpool of energy deep inside curved space. Would they see it as dangerous or as sacred? And what about stories? Every culture has them. We tell myths about our origins, our gods, our destinies. Would beings inside a black hole tell stories, too? Would they whisper to each other about the horizon, the unreachable boundary, the edge of their universe? Would they dream of what lies beyond, just as we dream of stars beyond our reach? Could it be that, in their myths we exist? That somewhere, in their bedtime stories, They speak of a place beyond the horizon where light is free, where time is gentle, where beings like us dwell. Wouldn't that be a beautiful symmetry? That both sides of the horizon dream of each other, never knowing that both dreams may be true? And now, let's pause and ask, what would home mean in such a place? On Earth, home is a structure, a shelter from weather, a place where warmth gathers. Inside a black hole, home might mean something else entirely. Perhaps it would not be walls and roofs, but shared rhythms, patterns of time, dances of gravity, bonds woven from the very fabric of space. Could we imagine such a home? Could we picture belonging without walls, safety without boundaries, community without distance? Isn't it strange how even our ideas of home are shaped by our environment? And doesn't that mean that, in another cosmos, home could be something we can't yet put into words? Now, here's another layer. What would death mean inside a black hole? It's not a comfortable question, I know. But if life can exist, then so must endings. On Earth, death is part of the cycle. One life ends, another begins, nourished by what came before. Inside a black hole, where time itself bends and twists, could death feel different? Could it be not a final stop, but a shift, a transformation into another rhythm of being? Perhaps, in such a place, beings would not even fear death. Perhaps they would see it as a return to the larger flow, a merging with the consciousness of the cosmos itself. Could we learn from that perspective, even here? Do you feel how black holes, even in imagination, invite us to reimagine not just physics, but existence itself? And here's a thought I find both humbling and comforting. If black holes really do cradle universes inside them, then life may already exist there. Right now, entire civilizations may be living, building, dreaming, never suspecting that their skies are wrapped inside ours. Could we ever meet them? Could two universes ever touch, ever speak, ever exchange even a whisper across that impossible boundary? Or are we destined only to dream of each other, like lovers separated by a wall too thick to break? Maybe the meeting doesn't need to happen in physics. Maybe it happens in imagination. Maybe the act of dreaming of them, and them dreaming of us, is itself a kind of contact. Isn't that a sweet thought? That every question we ask might be a message, drifting across horizons we cannot cross? And if that's true, then perhaps living inside a black hole is not a matter of survival at all. It is a matter of story, of myth, of dream. So let's imagine one more scene together. Picture a child in such a universe, sitting at the edge of a spiral river, watching the glow of bent light ripple above. They ask their parent, "Where did we come from? What is beyond the horizon?" And the parent smiles, perhaps with sadness, perhaps with wonder, and says, "No one knows. But some believe we were born from a star's ending, in a universe far away. Some believe that beyond the horizon, there are others who ask the same question." And in that child's heart, wonder stirs, just as it stirs in yours, just as it stirs in mine. Could it be that, across countless horizons, across countless universes, the deepest bond of all is not matter, not light, not time, but wonder itself? That we are all connected by the questions we carry, the mysteries we embrace, the stories we tell under unfamiliar skies? So, could we really live inside a black hole? Yes, perhaps not with lungs or hands or homes like ours. But in the deepest sense, in the sense of belonging, of questioning, of dreaming, I think the answer is already yes. For even here, in our own quiet universe, we are living inside mystery. We are building homes in the unknown. We are telling stories that reach across horizons. And maybe that is what living truly means. So let's rest here, at least for tonight. Rest in the thought that even in the darkest places, life might find a way. Rest in the possibility that every horizon hides not emptiness, but another story waiting to unfold. Rest in the comfort that we, too, are part of that endless unfolding. And tomorrow, well, tomorrow we will pick up the question again. And it will carry us somewhere new. Welcome back, friend. Do you feel it too? That sense that each time we return, the question grows quieter, yet deeper? It's like sitting beside a fire at night. The flames settle down into embers, glowing steady, but the warmth seems to seep further into your bones. Our question has become like that: steady, glowing, enduring. Could we really live inside a black hole? We've circled it from many sides: time and space, beginnings and endings, journeys and homes. Tonight, perhaps, we should ask not only about the physics, not only about the possibility, but about the meaning. If we could live inside a black hole, what would it teach us about life itself? Let's begin with silence. Black holes are silent. They emit no light, no sound, no message that can reach beyond their horizon. From the outside, they appear mute, mysterious, unknowable. But what if silence is not emptiness? What if silence is its own kind of language? Have you ever sat in a quiet room, or stood alone in the forest at night, and realized that silence isn't blank at all? It has texture. It has weight. It seems to press gently against your skin, to fill your ears with a hum that isn't really there. Black holes may be like that, silent, yes, but filled with a presence beyond words. Would you be afraid of that silence if you lived inside one? Or would it comfort you, like a vast blanket, reminding you that you are part of something larger? Now think of gravity. On Earth, gravity is a gentle companion. It holds us steady, keeps us from drifting into the sky. We rarely think about it, but inside a black hole, gravity becomes the ruler of all. It bends space, it twists time, it sculpts reality itself. What would it mean to live in a world where gravity is not just background, but foreground? Where every step, every breath, every thought is shaped by its presence? Could beings there come to see gravity not as a force, but as a kind of music, a rhythm woven through existence, to which all must dance? I sometimes wonder if gravity is not a law but a song we cannot hear directly, but one our bodies obey. And if that is true, then black holes are perhaps the deepest notes of all, the bass tones of the universe's great symphony. If you lived inside such a song, would you resist it? Or would you let it carry you, trusting its rhythm the way a dancer trusts the beat? And now time, always time. On Earth, we live by clocks. We divide our days into hours, our lives into decades. But inside a black hole, time bends and curves, slowing near the horizon, stretching near the singularity. Could life there find new rhythms, new ways of marking existence? Would they measure not in minutes or years, but in the flow of cosmic events, the turning of galaxies, the unfolding of gravitational waves? And what would memory mean in such a place? If time does not move in a straight line, could memory itself be nonlinear? Could beings recall not only the past, but hints of the future, folded into the present like hidden notes in a melody? Would they even speak of before and after, or would such words lose meaning? Could they instead live entirely in now, in the endless unfolding of the present moment? Doesn't that sound a little like meditation? The way we sometimes try to rest in the present, letting go of the past, not clinging to the future? Perhaps black holes are natural teachers of presence, inviting us to let go of linear time and simply be. Now, let's imagine how such life might evolve. Here, life adapts to its environment. Fish grow fins. Birds grow wings. Plants turn their leaves toward the sun. Inside a black hole, what would life adapt to? To darkness, certainly. To curved space, to warp time, to gravity as overwhelming as the sea. Could creatures there be weightless, flowing like currents? Or dense and strong, built to endure crushing pressures? Maybe they wouldn't have bodies at all, at least not in the sense we know. Maybe they'd exist as patterns, waves of energy, ripples in spacetime itself. Could consciousness live as a rhythm rather than a form? Could a being be not a shape but a song? And if that's possible, then perhaps we should ask, is our own consciousness already like that? Are we, too, more pattern than form, more rhythm than body? Does that mean we, in some deep sense, already live in a way that could exist inside a black hole? It's a humbling thought, isn't it? That life might not be about clinging to a particular form, but about finding harmony with the environment, whatever that environment may be. And here's another layer: community. If life inside a black hole exists, how would beings connect? Would they speak? Would they use light, which cannot escape, or would they find other ways, waves of gravity, pulses of time, vibrations in space itself? Could they weave entire languages out of shifts in space-time like cosmic braille? Would they build civilizations? Could they create structures not of stone or steel, but of patterns, resonances sustained by gravity, like standing waves on a string? Could they pass knowledge down, not in books or tablets, but in songs carried through the fabric of reality itself? And would they ask the same questions we do? Would they wonder about their origins? Would they tell myths about what lies beyond their horizon? Would they dream of universes beyond, just as we dream of universes within? Perhaps they already do. Perhaps, even now, some child in such a universe is asking their parent, "What lies beyond?" And the parent smiles and says, "No one knows, but some say there are beings out there," asking the very same question. Do you feel the symmetry? The way wonder itself might be the bridge between worlds. And maybe that's the answer to our question. Maybe living inside a black hole doesn't mean survival of flesh and bone. Maybe it means participating in the great conversation of existence. Asking, wondering, telling stories, building meaning in the face of mystery. Isn't that what we're doing right now? Living not in certainty, but in question? So, could we really live inside a black hole? Yes, if living means belonging to the mystery. Yes, if living means weaving meaning from the unknown. Yes, if living means trusting that even in the deepest silence, there is a song waiting to be heard. And maybe, just maybe, that's what the universe has been inviting us to realize all along. That life is not about conquering or controlling or even understanding fully. It is about listening. It is about leaning close to the silence and hearing the faint hum of wonder beneath it. So tonight, let us rest in that hum. Let us imagine it not as emptiness, but as fullness. Let us close our eyes and feel, if only for a moment, that we are already part of it. That the black hole is not out there, but here in the heart of mystery, where we have always lived. And tomorrow, when we open our eyes again, the question will still be waiting. Not answered, not ended, but alive. There is a silence in the universe so deep, it almost feels alive. A silence not of absence, but of fullness, like a vast ocean holding its breath. Black holes rest inside that silence, not as interruptions, but as part of it. They are not intruders in the cosmos. They are woven into its fabric, as natural as rivers, as inevitable as nightfall. And yet, the mind stirs with the same question each time they are imagined. What if one could live inside such a place? Not merely survive, but truly live, breathe, move, build, wonder, belong. Imagine standing at the edge of a horizon, the event horizon. Before you lies no light, no reflection, no surface. Only a space that swallows sight itself. You reach out your hand, and it disappears into the dark, as though the universe has gently taken it from you. Would you step further? Could you trust that beyond the invisible wall, there is not only destruction, but a continuation, another landscape, another sky? The question lingers like a whisper. To live inside such a place would mean more than building cities or cultivating gardens. It would mean adjusting the very idea of what life is. It would mean learning to call strangeness familiar. What would the sky look like in such a world? Perhaps it would not be filled with stars as we know them. Perhaps instead, light would curve into arcs, endless spirals painting the heavens like brushstrokes. Perhaps nothing would appear fixed. Every glow, every shadow would shift slowly, bent by the gravity that governs all. Would that sky comfort you? Or would you feel dizzy beneath it, unable to find a steady point? And if there were beings who lived there already, what would they call such a sky? Would they even think of it as strange? Or would it be there every day, as natural to them as our blue dome of daylight is to us? If one were to live inside a black hole, the sense of direction itself might dissolve. Up and down, near and far, even left and right could twist in unfamiliar ways. The ground beneath might curve back on itself. Pathways might lead in circles without ever appearing to. Would you be able to walk without losing yourself? Could you accept that movement might not always bring you closer, that sometimes steps forward would loop you back to where you began? Perhaps life in such a place would not measure progress by distance at all, but by rhythm, by cycles, by patterns that repeat and spiral, rather than lines that extend endlessly forward. Could that not be a richer kind of existence? One less obsessed with endings, more attuned to continuities? Then there is the matter of time. If space is curved, then so is time. To live inside a black hole might mean living inside a river of moments that flow differently than we know. Seconds could stretch into centuries. Centuries could pass in a breath. Could one adapt to such fluidity? Could a mind find peace when the clock no longer ticks evenly? Perhaps it would. Perhaps beings born in such a place would never need clocks at all. Perhaps they would learn to live entirely in the present, not because they chose to, but because the concept of before and after would lose all meaning. Could such a way of being bring a deeper calm, the serenity of knowing there is only ever now? And if there is only now, what of memory? What of dreams? Would they be sharper, clearer, like lanterns in the dark? Or would they scatter, becoming less linear, less bound to sequence, more like colors blending on a canvas? Could memory itself become art, fluid and shifting, rather than record and archive? One wonders, too, about community. If civilizations could rise inside a black hole, how would they connect? Not with light which cannot escape, but perhaps with pulses of gravity, with waves in spacetime itself. Would their voices travel as ripples, felt rather than heard? Could their languages be built not of sound or sight, but of vibration, echoes carried by the very fabric of reality? And in such a society, what would knowledge mean? Could they build libraries not of books, but of patterns, gravitational harmonies that could be sung, repeated, felt? Might wisdom be carried not in pages, but in the resonance of being together, of moving in tune with the cosmos itself? What of art? Would they carve shapes into stone, or would they carve patterns into space? Would their dances ripple the very structure of their world? Would their music be built not on sound, but on the trembling of time? Could their stories be woven not as lines, but as spirals, forever looping, forever returning, yet never quite the same? And here arises another question. What would death mean in such a place? If time folds and space curves, then perhaps death is not a finality, but a transformation. A being might dissolve back into the pattern, not gone, but changed, woven once more into the great rhythm that cradles all. Could such a vision soften the sharpness of endings? Could it teach us that to live inside a black hole is to accept that death, too, is a continuation? Perhaps that is the deepest invitation of this question. To live inside a black hole would mean to surrender to mystery, not as an enemy, but as a home. To rest not in certainty, but in curiosity. To accept that not all truths arrive as answers. Some arrive only as wonder. And wonder, perhaps, is enough. Imagine lying beneath that strange sky, eyes open, heart quiet. Around you, spacetime itself curves and flows. The silence is vast, yet filled with presence. You do not know where the horizon ends, or if it ends at all. You do not know what lies beyond, nor do you need to. You belong not because you understand, but because you are part of it. Isn't that, in the end, what living truly means? Not to master, not to conquer, not to know everything, but to belong. And so, perhaps, the answer to the question is not a matter of physics at all. Perhaps it is a matter of spirit. Could we live inside a black hole? Yes, if we can learn to live inside mystery. Yes, if we can learn to make a home in the unknown. Yes, if we can trust that even in the darkest places, life may yet unfold. So the silence deepens, the sky bends, the horizon waits, and the question continues not as something to be solved, but as something to be lived. There are places in the universe where questions feel heavier than answers, where a single thought can expand like a galaxy, spiraling outward, endless in its echoes. To imagine living inside a black hole is to stand in such a place, at the edge of comprehension, where the known dissolves and the unknown spreads out like a horizon of stars that never stops retreating. But what if this act of imagining is itself a form of travel? What if, by simply asking, you step closer to the threshold of that dark, spiraling world? Close your eyes for a moment. Picture the edge of space curving, folding in upon itself like a page being turned. What lies written on the inside of that page? Could it be a new chapter of existence, waiting patiently for someone to open it? The very thought invites a deeper question. If one could live inside a black hole, what would home mean there? Would it be a place of walls and roofs, or could it be something less fixed, more fluid, like a pocket of stability carved within chaos? Think of a bubble floating inside water. The bubble is delicate, yet it holds its form even as the liquid presses against it from every side. Could a black hole contain such bubbles of stability? Hidden regions where space and time settle into patterns that life could inhabit? If so, would home be less like a city and more like a floating island, drifting through currents of warped reality? And then, what of light? In our familiar world, light defines so much of our experience. Dawn warms us awake, dusk cools us into rest. Shadows teach us about shape, reflections reveal distance. But inside a black hole, light bends, folds, and often fails to escape. Would vision itself change? Would you rely less on sight and more on something else? Perhaps home in such a place would glow not with sunlight, but with radiance from within. Imagine buildings made of shimmering particles, walls that hum faintly as if alive, guiding you through sound instead of light. Imagine paths marked not by lamps, but by vibrations that ripple beneath your feet, telling you which way is near, which way is far. Could the senses adapt to such a world, where brightness is not the guide, but resonance is? And what of the body itself? Would we remain as we are, or would living inside such a place require us to shift? Perhaps our bones would grow lighter, more flexible, to endure constant distortions of gravity. Perhaps our minds would expand, able to hold not only one thread of time but many, like musicians who can hear harmonies rather than single notes. Could such evolution happen gently, over generations, until it felt as natural as breathing? If that were true, then maybe the very idea of strange would fade away. For the children of such a world, warped skies and elastic time would not be frightening at all. They would run across bending landscapes with laughter, their games shaped by gravity's whims, their imaginations unbounded by our rigid sense of straight lines. What seems impossible to us could be play to them. And if children can play there, could adults dream? Could poets still weave words, painting not with ink but with gravity's rhythm? Could artists still create, their brushes dipped in curved light, their canvases stretched across spiraling horizons? Could love still bloom, hesitant at first, then unstoppable, between those who learn to navigate the strange tides of space together? Would lovers look into one another's eyes and see galaxies bending in reflection, whole universes hidden in each gaze? Could vows be spoken not as promises bound to time, but as harmonies sung into the fabric of space, meant to resonate long after the voices themselves fade? What about hunger? Not just for food, but for meaning. How would beings inside a black hole nourish themselves, not only with sustenance but with purpose? Would they cultivate energy from the very tension of spacetime? Could they draw strength from the rhythm of collapse, from the dance of matter spiraling inward? Might meals themselves become sacred, not only to feed the body, but to remind each being that life persists even within the deepest shadow? And purpose, what would it look like there? Here on Earth, so much of purpose is tied to survival, to building futures, to reaching for what comes next. But inside a black hole, where the very idea of next may dissolve, would purpose instead arise from being present? Could meaning be found not in progress, but in presence, in living fully within each curved moment, no matter how fleeting, no matter how eternal? Would they ask the same questions we do? Would they look outward, wondering if anyone, anywhere, could see them, or would they look inward, content to marvel at the patterns of their own existence? Could curiosity itself be their guiding star, shining brighter than light could ever escape? And still, another thought presses forward, soft but insistent. What if we are already inside such a place? What if our universe, vast and expanding, is itself the heart of a black hole from another realm? If that were true, would it change how we live now? Would it soften our fear of endings, reminding us that collapse is only another kind of beginning? If life can exist within us, cells, organs, whole ecosystems thriving unseen, could not life also exist within the cosmos, nested layers of worlds within worlds, each believing it is the outermost? Could it be that black holes are less like prisons and more like wombs, places where new realities are born? To live inside such a space, then, might not be an exile at all. It might be a continuation, a deepening, a birth into a new pattern of being. And so the questions multiply, like stars scattering across the night. What does it mean to belong? What does it mean to endure? What does it mean to wonder, when answers remain hidden? Perhaps the act of wondering is itself the point. To live inside a black hole, one would not live in certainty, but in endless curiosity. Every step would be an experiment, every breath a discovery, every silence an invitation to listen more closely. Could life be richer that way, not in knowing, but in exploring? Close your eyes once more. Imagine yourself standing on a hillside, though the hill curves in impossible directions. Above you, the sky ripples like fabric, stitched with arcs of bending starlight. Around you, the air hums faintly, as though space itself is breathing. You take a step, not forward, not back, but into the rhythm. You belong, though nothing is familiar. You are at home, though nothing is permanent. Isn't that, in some quiet way, what we long for even here? To belong in the unknown, to find peace in the ungraspable? So perhaps the question, could we live inside a black hole, is not meant to be answered with physics alone. Perhaps it is an invitation to reimagine what living means. To live, not in certainty, but in wonder. To find home, not in stability, but in resonance. To discover that even in the darkest depths, life, strange, beautiful, resilient, may yet find a way. And maybe, just maybe, so could we. What does it mean to look into the dark and see possibility, rather than fear? To gaze upon the mouth of a black hole, vast, devouring, silent, and imagine not an ending, but a beginning? Perhaps the more we lean into this question, the more we uncover about ourselves. If a black hole is a gateway, then stepping through it is less about falling and more about opening. Opening to unfamiliar laws of physics, opening to new ways of being, opening to the idea that what we thought was absolute may only be local, temporary, fragile. Could it be that the universe asks us, again and again, to release certainty and to find peace in mystery instead? Picture it. A threshold of swirling light and shadow, curving in impossible arcs. Around the edge, space itself quivers like fabric drawn too tight. Step closer, and the hum grows louder. Not a sound exactly, but a vibration felt in every part of you. Would you hesitate there? Would you look back one more time at the stars? Or would curiosity pull you forward, even into the unknown? If you stepped across, what would the first sensation be? Would it feel like falling or floating? Would time dissolve, scattering like leaves in a sudden gust? Would your memories stretch into strange patterns, blending past and future into one shimmering thread? Could identity itself be reshaped, not lost but reassembled in ways you cannot yet imagine? And then, if there were others, if civilizations truly thrived inside, what would their lives look like? Would their cities rise upward, spiraling around invisible axes, anchored by gravity itself? Would their dwellings cling to curves of space, bending gently with the tides of warped reality? Or perhaps they would not build at all, but instead grow their homes, coaxing energy into form, shaping light and matter as gardeners tend soil. What about their days, if days even exist? Without the turning of a planet, without the cycle of night and morning, what would mark the rhythm of their lives? Would they measure time by pulses of energy, by waves of space swelling and receding? Would festivals and gatherings be tied not to seasons but to resonances in spacetime, moments when gravity itself sings? Could art survive there? Or more than survive, could it thrive in ways we can't conceive? Imagine music not made of sound, but of ripples and curvature, whole choirs weaving harmonies into the fabric of space. Imagine paintings not on canvas, but on the very air, colors bending in arcs only visible from certain angles. Imagine stories told not in words, but in patterns of time itself. Histories felt rather than read, experienced as shifting rhythms that move through generations. And love, how would love endure? Here, we bind love to touch, to shared moments, to faces and voices. But in a place where distance stretches and bends, could love itself bend to survive? Could connection be woven deeper than space, rooted not in nearness but in resonance? Two beings, held together not by proximity, but by harmony, vibrating in tune no matter how far apart the curves of reality place them. Wouldn't that be love in its most essential form? And hunger, always hunger. Not just the body's hunger, but the soul's. Could they find nourishment in ways that seem impossible to us? Perhaps by harvesting the energy of collapse, sipping from the endless well of gravity's pull. Perhaps by cultivating stability in chaos, drawing sustenance from the spaces where patterns hold. Could life learn to thrive on paradox itself, turning danger into nourishment, like plants that grow in volcanic soil? What if their myths reflect this? Could their oldest stories tell of ancestors who first crossed the threshold, who first dared to see darkness as possibility? Might they speak of travelers who carried seeds of light with them, planting them in shadow until whole civilizations bloomed? Wouldn't those myths echo our own legends of beginnings, of courage, of stepping into the unknown? And still the question deepens. If they exist, do they wonder about us? Do they look outward, toward the unreachable edge, and imagine that beyond lies another world, filled with beings who cannot see them? Do they tell their children stories of universes beyond their own horizon? Universes where stars shine differently, universes that may never be reached? Could it be that we are their myth just as they are ours? Then what of scale? Inside a black hole, distances defy expectation. What seems small can stretch infinite. What seems vast can fold into a single point. Could it be that whole galaxies live within, compressed yet spacious, infinite within finite bounds? Would a single step there feel like traveling forever, while an eternity might pass in the span of a breath? And how would memory function in such a place? Here, memory feels linear. We recall yesterday, anticipate tomorrow. But there, might memory ripple too? Could beings remember in circles, in spirals, in overlapping layers of time? Could they feel the past not as something gone, but as something still here, folding into the present? Would their sense of self expand, unbound from sequence, enriched by simultaneity? So how would identity change? Would I still mean what it means to us? Or would identity be shared, braided across many threads of time, many versions of self? Could I become we not as a choice, but as a condition of being? And if so, could empathy there be effortless because each being carries pieces of many lives within? But here comes another question, soft but insistent. Is this imagining truly about them, or is it about us? When we dream of civilizations inside black holes, are we not dreaming of our own longing for survival, for connection, for meaning even in collapse? Could it be that black holes are mirrors, reflecting not just light, but desire? And if so, what do they show us? They show us that endings may not be what we think, that collapse can cradle, that destruction can give way to creation, that within the darkest silence, there may still be song. Isn't that lesson as much about our daily lives as it is about the cosmos? Think of your own life. Moments when something ended, when a door closed, when certainty dissolved. Did it not sometimes give way to something new, unexpected, unimagined? Could the same be true on the grandest scale, that black holes, feared as endings, may be beginnings in disguise? And if that is true, then perhaps the most important question is not could we live inside a black hole, but could we learn from it? Could we let its mysteries teach us patience, humility, and wonder? Could we carry its lesson into our own small universes, our families, our friendships, our quiet moments, where endings so often frighten us? Step with me once more into the image, a vast horizon of darkness, bending light into arcs of gold. You draw near, your breath slow, your heart steady. Fear whispers, but curiosity sings louder. You step across, and instead of falling, you expand. The universe opens within you, layer upon layer, pattern upon pattern. You are not lost. You are transformed. Could it be that this is what living inside a black hole means? Not survival of the body, but expansion of the spirit? Not clinging to what is familiar, but learning to belong in what is unknown. And if so, then the question remains, echoing gently, are we not already living in one? An infinite mystery, vast beyond comprehension, filled with beauty and terror alike. A universe we cannot escape, but can only explore. If that is so, then perhaps the black hole is not somewhere else at all. Perhaps it is here, now, within and around us. And if we accept that, then maybe, just maybe, we are already living inside the answer. What is it that draws us so powerfully toward the unknown? Why do we find ourselves again and again staring at horizons, whether they are oceans, mountain ranges, or the very edge of space, feeling that same mixture of awe and restlessness? Could it be that curiosity is woven into the very structure of existence, that to be alive is to be pulled forward by wonder? Think for a moment of the stars. Not just the ones that glitter gently overhead, but the thought of them, scattered like silver dust across a dark velvet sky. They are unreachable, yet we gaze anyway. We know they are suns, nuclear furnaces burning across impossible distances, and yet they feel like companions. Isn't it strange that light from millions of years ago should meet your eyes tonight and stir something tender inside you? Could it be that longing itself is a form of gravity, pulling our thoughts ever outward? And if so, what greater horizon could there be than the black hole? It is the perfect paradox. Utter darkness surrounded by the brightest ring of light, the embodiment of silence yet roaring with unimaginable energy. Could this be why we return to it in thought and story, as if it were an archetype, a symbol etched into the fabric of our collective dreaming? But let us lean closer. If we could drift near without being torn apart, what would the view be like? Imagine yourself hovering just outside the event horizon, that invisible threshold where escape is no longer possible. Around you, stars bend, their light curving like water drawn into a whirlpool. Would you feel dizzy, watching the universe itself ripple and bend? Or would you feel a strange peace, as if finally standing at the edge of all questions? And then, the great question itself. If crossing that horizon is not an ending, what kind of place lies beyond? Could it be that entire landscapes bloom there, lit not by sunlight but by the gentle glow of warped energy? Picture valleys carved by currents of space-time, hills rising and falling like waves of an eternal sea. Could rivers of plasma wind through them, luminous and slow, painting the ground in colors our eyes have never known? Would there be skies inside a black hole? Could there be a sense of above and below? Or would direction dissolve into something fluid, changing with each step? Imagine looking up and not seeing stars, but spirals of glowing patterns, shifting slowly like the dance of galaxies compressed into a canvas. Wouldn't it feel like standing inside a cosmic cathedral, arches of gravity bending in endless grace? And what of beings? If life does exist there, what form might it take? Could creatures evolve to drift effortlessly on the tides of curved space, their bodies more like fields than flesh? Would they shimmer, their outlines dissolving into light, visible only as ripples moving through the air? Could they communicate not with words, but with harmonies, resonating directly with the fabric of their world? And if you met one, would you recognize it as alive, or would it feel like encountering the essence of thought itself? Perhaps their perception of time would be their greatest difference. For us, time is a straight path, one step after another, days following nights. But within the depths of a black hole, where time itself bends, might they see past, present, and future all at once? Could they live in layers, experiencing yesterday and tomorrow as neighboring rooms? And if so, how would they tell stories? Would their histories be spirals rather than lines, songs that repeat with variation rather than march forward? Would you want to live like that, to feel all your moments at once? To cradle your childhood in one hand, your old age in the other, never losing either? Or would it be overwhelming, too heavy a weight of memory? Could it be that our way, forgetting, moving forward, letting go, is not a flaw but a gift, a mercy woven into our kind of existence? And yet, is it not tempting? The idea that nothing is lost, that every smile, every kindness, every dream still hums somewhere in the folds of time. If black holes hold that secret, could stepping inside be less about survival and more about remembering? Remembering in ways we cannot do here? But here is another question. If such beings exist inside, do they dream of us? Could they feel the faint pull of our universe, just as we feel the pull of theirs? Might they tell stories of a world where time flows in one direction, where beings live and die in sequence, fragile and brief? Would they find our way of being strange or beautiful? Would they envy the sweetness of our impermanence? Imagine, then, two civilizations, one inside, one outside, each longing for the other, each imagining what it would be like to live differently. Could longing itself be a bridge, invisible yet real, spanning the horizon that separates them? Isn't that always the case? That imagination is our first way of reaching across distance? And what of creation? If black holes are not merely endings, but beginnings, then perhaps within them universes themselves are born. Could it be that our own universe is such a child, cradled once inside a black hole of some parent cosmos? If so, does that mean there are countless others, each unfolding with its own stars, its own histories, its own beings asking the same questions we ask now? How many universes could exist in this great cosmic family? Infinite, perhaps. Each one a story, each one an experiment, each one a song in a choir too vast for us to hear. And if that is so, then where do we belong? Are we a single note, or are we already woven into the harmony of something larger? What if death itself is like a black hole, not an end, but a passage? Could our final moments be like stepping across an event horizon, into a reality we cannot yet comprehend? So why fear it? Why not imagine it as another birth, another doorway into wonder? Wouldn't that change how we live now, knowing that endings may hide beginnings? And yet, we must ask, why do we resist? Why does the unknown so often fill us with dread instead of delight? Is it because our bodies crave safety, our minds crave certainty? Or is it because we confuse mystery with emptiness, when in truth mystery may be fullness too vast for us to grasp? Take a breath now. Close your eyes and picture yourself standing on the edge of a black hole. The universe curves before you, vast and strange. Fear flutters in your chest, but wonder rises too. If you lean forward, if you step across, what awaits? Annihilation? Transformation? Or perhaps simply a continuation, in another form, another rhythm? Would you step forward? Or would you linger, watching the swirling horizon, content to wonder without crossing? Could it be that both choices are valid, that some of us are born to leap, and some to watch, and both serve the mystery in their own way? And in this quiet, another thought arises. Maybe we are already inside. Maybe the universe we inhabit is not outside a black hole at all, but within one, floating in the depths of a greater cosmos. If that were true, would it change anything about how you live your day? Would your breakfast taste any different, your laughter with a friend feel any less real? Or would it make everything sweeter, knowing we are part of something so immense, so unknowable? Could it be that the answer doesn't matter as much as the question itself? That what nourishes us is not certainty, but wonder. That to live well is to keep asking, to keep gazing into the dark with curiosity rather than fear. And so we stand here, you and I, at the edge of thought, peering into shadow. The horizon bends, the stars shimmer, the silence hums. The question remains, unhurried, unresolved, like a soft echo. Could we really live inside a black hole? Perhaps the answer is not yes or no, but a deeper invitation. Live as though you already do. Live as though mystery surrounds you, because it does. Live as though endings bloom into beginnings, because they can. Live as though love bends across horizons, because it will. And isn't that, in the end, what it means to belong to the cosmos? To stand inside the unknowable, fragile and luminous, asking gentle questions, and listening for the answers that arrive like distant starlight, soft, patient, eternal. What does it mean to cross a boundary you cannot return from? Have you ever stood at the edge of something? An ocean at midnight, a forest where the path fades into shadow, and felt the pull to go just a little further? that quiet whisper that says, step forward, even if you don't know what lies beyond. A black hole is, in a way, the ultimate edge. It is a threshold the universe has drawn, not with walls or fences, but with gravity so intense that even light bows down to it. And yet, the question lingers. Does crossing it mean losing yourself, or discovering something hidden? Could the most forbidden horizon in the cosmos also be the most fertile? Let us imagine for a moment that you are drifting weightless toward such a horizon. The stars behind you blur, their light stretched and smeared, as though the sky itself were painting with trembling hands. Ahead, the darkness yawns, not empty but full, a silence that hums like the pause between heartbeats. Would you be afraid, or would you feel something like relief, as though stepping into a mystery too vast for fear to matter? And what if the inside is not destruction but transformation? Could the black hole be less a monster and more a womb, carrying within it the possibility of whole new worlds? So, what kind of worlds would they be? Would they mirror ours, with skies and seas and continents rising like the backs of sleeping giants? Or would they defy all resemblance, landscapes woven of time as much as space, where rivers flow both forward and backward, where mountains rise and fall in cycles like breathing? Would life adapt there? And if it did, how strange might it seem to us? Imagine beings shaped not by the tug of air or the weight of oceans, but by the bending of time itself. Could they appear fluid, stretching and contracting like reflections in water? Could their thoughts ripple outward, shimmering as vibrations we might mistake for light? And if they saw us, what would they think? Would they recognize us as kin, or would we seem impossibly fragile, bound as we are to a single arrow of time, trapped in the sequence of birth, growth, and death? Might they find beauty in our brevity, the way flowers bloom fiercely and then fade? Or would they pity us, as one might pity a candle in a storm? But let us turn the question around. If you met such a being, if it drifted near and shimmered before you, its voice less spoken than sung through the fabric of space, how would you respond? Would you try to speak, to offer words, even knowing they might mean nothing? Or would you simply listen, hoping that some deeper language of wonder could bridge the gap? And perhaps you'd ask, do they dream? Do they imagine? Do they wonder about horizons the way we do? Could it be that curiosity is universal, not bound by biology or form, but by the simple fact of being conscious? If so, maybe you and this strange being would share a silence that is not empty, but full of mutual questions. And what of civilizations? Could entire societies thrive inside the depths of a black hole, unseen and unsuspected by us? Picture great cities woven of energy and gravity, towers not built of stone or steel but of space-time itself, arching gracefully into skies that shift like auroras. Imagine markets where the wares are not objects but experiences, memories traded like treasures, emotions bottled like fine wine. Would time shape their culture differently? Perhaps their history would not be told in lines but in spirals, events looping and returning, each era echoing in another. Their art might shimmer across dimensions, paintings that change when viewed from yesterday versus tomorrow. Their music might sound like choirs of shifting tones, harmonies that bend in ways our ears cannot follow. And could such a civilization look outward? Might they sense us, faint as a shadow glimpsed at the edge of sight, and wonder who we are? Would they build instruments not to capture light, as we build telescopes, but to capture possibility, to reach across the thin veil that separates one universe from another? Could they be listening even now, waiting for us to send a signal not of radio waves but of imagination? And what of us? Would we ever dare to send a message into a black hole, knowing it cannot return? Would we whisper into the darkness, "We are here, we are wondering, we are alive," and trust that someone, something, might hear? Isn't that what we already do, every time we gaze into the night sky, every time we tell stories of stars and gods and distant worlds? Isn't storytelling itself a kind of signal, cast into the unknown, hoping for an answer? But maybe the black hole does not need to answer. Maybe its silence is the answer. Could silence itself be a language, teaching us patience, humility, reverence? When you sit by a river, do you expect it to speak? And yet, doesn't its presence change you, calming your breath, softening your thoughts? Perhaps the black hole is like that, a cosmic river carrying us into questions without needing to resolve them. And still the mind resists. It wants clarity, certainty, endings. It wants to know, is it survivable? Is it livable? Could we build homes there, raise families, watch generations bloom? And maybe the answer is yes in ways we cannot yet picture. Or maybe the answer is no, and yet the asking of the question is itself the point. Could it be that black holes are not places to inhabit with bodies, but with wonder? That living inside them means not physically dwelling there, but allowing their mystery to live inside us. Consider this, our universe may itself be the child of such a place. If every black hole births another cosmos, then perhaps we are already inside one, walking through its galaxies as casually as we walk through gardens. So what does that make us? Descendants of a collapse, or pioneers of a new beginning? Could it be both? And if universes can multiply this way, what does that say about endings? Are they ever truly final? Or are they simply transitions, transformations, doorways? Could it be that what we call death, whether of a star, a civilization, or even a person, is not disappearance, but migration into a realm beyond our perception? What comfort might that offer, if true? That nothing is wasted, nothing is lost, but only changed. That every collapse is also a creation. Doesn't that echo in the smallest details of life too? The way autumn leaves crumble into soil, feeding spring flowers. The way endings in our lives, jobs, relationships, chapters, often become the seeds of something we could not yet imagine. So perhaps the black hole is not alien after all. Perhaps it is a cosmic mirror, showing us truths we already know in quieter forms. That fear and wonder are twins. That endings and beginnings are partners. That silence itself can be full of meaning. And so we circle back, not with answers but with deeper questions. Could we really live inside a black hole? Or is the more important question, could we learn to live with the mystery it represents? Could we let ourselves dwell not in certainty, but in awe? Could we accept that some horizons are not to be crossed, but to be honored, gazed at, and wondered about forever? And if we could, wouldn't that change how we live here, on this small blue world, spinning in its fragile orbit? Wouldn't it make every moment sweeter, every connection deeper, every breath more miraculous, knowing that we are part of something so vast it cannot be contained in any single answer? So perhaps the invitation is simple. Live as though you are already at the edge of a black hole, with mystery at your doorstep. Let your days be guided not by fear of the dark, but by curiosity for what it hides. Let your questions be your lanterns, your wonder your compass. And remember, sometimes to live inside a black hole is simply to live fully in the unknown, with courage, with softness, with joy. What does it mean to end a journey? Is an ending ever truly final? Or is it simply a doorway opening onto a new landscape of thought and wonder? When we reach the close of something, a story, a day, a life, do we not also step into a new beginning? One we cannot yet see but can feel stirring quietly beneath the surface. A black hole teaches us this in its own way. What we call the end of light, the end of matter, the end of a star's long life, may in truth be the opening of another universe, a blossoming unseen by our eyes. The question whispers, could we be standing, even now, within the folds of such a birth? Could our very existence be the echo of another world's ending? As I sit with this thought, I find myself imagining the edge of the event horizon as not a wall, but a curtain. Have you ever brushed aside a curtain on a sunny morning, letting light spill into a room that felt still and dark only moments before? What if stepping into a black hole feels something like that? Not a loss, but a revelation, a gentle unveiling of something hidden but always present. And yet, how strange that such possibility is wrapped in fear. We speak of black holes as monsters, devourers, cosmic maws that swallow stars whole. But could it be that we fear them simply because they remind us of endings, of the unknown? And isn't the unknown where all beginnings live? Isn't every adventure born from the courage to step into mystery? I wonder, If we could stand at the brink of a black hole without danger, if we could gaze into its depths without being pulled apart, what would we feel? Awe, terror, or perhaps something gentler? A calm recognition that we are looking at one of the universe's deepest truths, that destruction and creation are not enemies, but partners dancing in endless rhythm. Imagine for a moment that you drift across the event horizon. Would it be silent, or would you hear the fabric of space groan like the timbers of an old ship? Would the stars above stretch into streaks of white fire, like the brushstrokes of some patient artist? Would you feel your own heartbeat slow, as though time itself were laying a hand upon your shoulder, guiding you into a different rhythm? And once inside, what would you see? Could it be another sky, rich with galaxies that never touch ours, suns that will never rise above our Earth? Could it be landscapes we cannot name, mountains that flow, rivers of starlight, valleys carved not by wind or water but by the bending of spacetime? Or would it be something stranger still, something no metaphor can capture, a realm beyond imagining? If such places exist, could life bloom there? Could there be beings walking under skies lit by unfamiliar suns, their stories unfolding far beyond our sight? And could they, perhaps, ask the same questions we ask now? Are we alone? Are we part of something greater? Are our beginnings tied to an ending we cannot remember? And if we could somehow meet them, what would we say? Would we share our songs, our laughter, our fears? Would we tell them about our oceans, about the way waves sound on a rocky shore, about how autumn leaves smell when the air turns crisp? Could they understand? Or would they, too, teach us, showing us ways of being that make us rethink everything we thought was certain? Perhaps the truest answer is that we are already connected. For if universes sprout within black holes, like seeds within fruit, then are we not kin to countless worlds, all children of collapse, all born from the same cosmic rhythm of endings becoming beginnings? Could it be that every galaxy we see in the night sky is not just a cluster of stars, but a sibling born from another horizon? This thought makes me pause. It makes me feel small, yes, but not in the way of despair. Rather, small in the way one feels when standing before a mountain, or watching the sea stretch endlessly to the horizon. Small, and yet part of something vast, woven into a fabric so immense that no thread is without meaning. And so, as I close this exploration, I cannot help but reflect on the questions themselves. Have you noticed how the questions are what endure? Answers shift, change, dissolve. What once seemed impossible becomes ordinary. What once was mystery becomes explanation. But the questions, they remain, like constellations in the night sky, guiding us not to conclusions but to journeys. Could we really live inside a black hole? Perhaps the truest answer is not yes or no, but that the asking itself is a way of living. To live with wonder, to breathe with curiosity, to step into the unknown not with fear but with reverence. That is its own kind of existence inside the mystery. And maybe that's the quiet invitation here. To live not only on this earth under this sun, but also within the infinite space of questions. To walk through our days with the same awe we feel when gazing into the night sky. To remember that our lives, fleeting though they are part of a story far larger than we can write. A story still unfolding, still spiraling, still singing through the fabric of time. What will you do with that? Will you look at the stars differently tonight, knowing they may be the children of collapses long past? Will you listen to silence differently, hearing in it not emptiness but possibility? Will you carry your own questions tenderly, letting them light your way rather than weigh you down? And as you drift toward sleep, perhaps you will feel it. A sense that you are already inside a black hole of sorts, inside a universe that was once another's ending. And yet, here you are, alive, thinking, feeling, wondering. Isn't that miraculous? Isn't that enough? So let us close gently, not with finality but with openness. For in truth, nothing here is finished. The story of black holes continues, the story of the cosmos continues, the story of you continues. And maybe, just maybe, every breath you take is itself a step across a horizon, every heartbeat a passage into a new universe. Could we live inside a black hole? Perhaps we already do. Perhaps we always have. Perhaps the question was never about possibility, but about recognition, about seeing ourselves as part of a mystery that has no end, only endless beginnings. And so, with that thought, I leave you not with an answer, but with a question. One you might carry quietly, like a candle in the dark. What if the universe itself is dreaming, and you are the dream?